Cold calling. If the thought of it makes you cringe a bit as a marketer, you're not alone. Outbound outreach isn't always the most elegant marketing tactic and can often rub consumers the wrong way. But in this week's episode, we look at some new ways that marketers can be more effective by warming up their approach to prospecting for new leads. Plus, special guest Mark Colgan joins us with his thoughts on how many outreach attempts is too many. Stay tuned for all that and more. Welcome to Marketing is Broken, the weekly series where we help marketers sell both the best thing you've seen in the last 6 months and everything else.
Something just came across my desk, John. It is perhaps the best thing I've seen in the last 6 months. If you have 60 seconds, I'd like to share the idea with you.
Oddly enough, 3% isn't an unrealistic number when it comes to three things. Number one, a response rate to marketing cold calls. Number two, a click-through rate to marketing promotional emails. And number three, a website conversion rate for a B2B lead generation site. If the natural rate of occurrence is the same across so many different mediums, what does that tell you? Well, about 97% of people aren't in the buying frame of mind when they see our marketing campaigns. But despite a nearly universal rejection of cold offers, most marketers have no choice but to include outbound tactics as at least part of our mix. I mean, leads and sales don't just grow on trees, right? And so we marketers have to get resourceful when it comes to reaching out to potential customers who haven't expressed any interest in what we have to sell. We can do better than 3%, right? We recently came across an episode of the Growth Marketing Toolbox podcast where Mark Colgan, the Chief Revenue Officer at TaskDrive, outlined some of his best strategies for cold outbound lead generation. We loved the episode so much that we asked him to answer some of our most burning follow-up questions about cold outreach. Cold outbound doesn't have to be so cold these days. How do you research prospects and then use that information to increase your outreach success?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And unfortunately, we have so much data that we can actually find and research for our prospects before we reach out to them. However, it's hard to know where to start because almost we have too much data. So I like to break these down into three main sections. You've got industry personalization, company personalization, and personal individual personalization. So what that looks like in practice is with industry-based personalization, you're really looking at what's happening in the industry. So what current events have been happening? What are the concerns within the industry? Is there any industry news that's affecting the industry as a whole? What industry awards has there been? And you're looking at the technology trends and common priorities of that industry as a whole. And there are a number of places where you can go to find this out. And I'd like to look at industry publications. So pretty much every industry has an industry magazine or a publication online, as well as the websites for industry awards. So they often have the latest awards and the latest news of the industry too. So there are two places that I like to go to for industry personalization. The next level down is company-based or account-based personalization. And this is all specific to the company as a whole. So this could be recent product launches, it could be company updates, such as size and position in the market, if they're hiring at the moment, what their growth rate is like. There was one email that I sent out based on the fact they did a remote retreat. They brought the whole team together and they went to like this private island somewhere. That was a perfect excuse or perfect reason to use some personalization in my email to them. So, and you can find that sort of information out on their website or through Crunchbase profiles or AngelList, as well as social media profiles can also give you this information.
That's great information and a wonderful framework. So you've also said in the past that content comes before outreach. So what do you mean by that? And how does content support the sales process these days?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I believe this is a lot of this is my opinion, but I really believe that in order to succeed today, especially in sales, you really need to adopt a give first mentality. And also that couples quite nicely into the fact that no one likes to be sold to, but we do still like to buy. So when you think about people buy from those that they know, like, and trust, that's a very old adage, which is still true, especially so in 2019. Then really it becomes about sharing valuable content, which enables you to establish the foundation of a relationship with that prospect or a potential customer. And what you're really trying to do here is to be seen as a trusted advisor so that when it comes to the situation where you are selling, you're giving advice rather than selling to somebody because they trust you and they want to hear your opinion and your thoughts around the solution. So ultimately you must have something to give. And I really think that your content should have these two key criteria. And the first one is the most important. It must add value to your prospects' lives. And the second one is that it must help them along their buyer's journey, not your sales process, but it has to help them through their buyer's journey. So that's why I think content comes first when it comes to outreach, because you need that content before you reach out to people.
Totally. Totally. Okay, great. So we've prospected, we've built some content. And then one other thing that I've heard you say is that you can reach out to somebody as many as 6 times without potentially a response. So I get a little nervous reaching out that first time. So walk me through, what that cadence of outreach looks like, from the first time to the 6th time, where they're finally like, oh, Mark, I'm so glad, that you, that you reached out to me 6 times. I've been meaning to get back to you, and here's my business. Like, how does that work? Because I think that's probably the most awkward part for a lot of marketers, is
Sure.
just how to execute then. Oh, they didn't get back to me that first time. How do I then not appear creepy or needy, or how do I continue to add value even though I don't have that back and forth dialogue going yet?
Mhm. No, great question. And I've been there myself as a marketer and a salesperson, being a bit nervous about reaching out. And it really comes back to that give first mentality. So if you are giving value and providing value to an individual, then really you're not harassing them, or you're not. I mean, there is a fine line between sending a follow-up email every day. The tone has to be right, and the actual content and the content of your message has to be right and appropriate. However, if you are leading with value, you know that the majority, you should know who your prospects are, and what they're going through in their professional lives at least. And what you have to remember is that at any one time, only 3% of your target audience are in an active buying state or looking to make a purchase. That means that 97% of them are not actively looking or actively browsing for a new solution or to change their current situation. So you have to keep that in mind. And that's why I recommend sending more follow-ups than just the one or two that people often do. And you typically find that, I believe there's a stat recently from Inside Sales, that the average, or the typical time that somebody replies is on that the fifth correspondence. So um, so what you're really trying to do with your follow-up emails is seed your brand, and then fan those embers of the relationship that you're trying to build with them. And a lot of people say to me, like, well, how do we come up with this content, especially if we haven't got a marketing team, or our marketing team is in its infancy and we haven't created this content. So I think if you remember to offer value, there's two places where you can go out and find this content if you don't have the time to create it yourself. And the first place to look is, I like to look at job adverts, especially if it's an industry or a market that I'm not too familiar with. I like to look at the job descriptions of the key titles that I'm trying to communicate with, because within the job titles, it will tell you the responsibilities that they have, the challenges and their objectives. Then I take that information and then look up some content, which could be from the industry, it could be from some key vendors and their blogs. And what I do is I share the content I found, because I know, or I'm making a hypothesis that it will be relevant to them because I've done my research on the individual and on their job title. So don't worry if you can't create the content yourself, or you don't have enough time. You can curate it, and just make sure that you're not sharing it from a competitor, or somebody that isn't going to be relevant to them. So if you check out the job description and understand what they're going through, you can always find some content that you can share with them. And that's what I use in my follow-ups.
That is great information. Mark Colgan, I don't think anybody should be able to use the term cold outbound after hearing what you had to say about outbound. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Are you more of an outbound or inbound marketer? What are your favorite tactics or tips for outbound marketing, and what kind of success rates do you see when you use them? Share your thoughts in the comments, and you might just win yourself some new Brandish Insights gear. We'll see you next time. Hey, it's Josh from Brandish Insights. Thank you for watching Marketing is Broken. If you like this week's episode, please click below to subscribe or check out other episodes. And if your company could use more insights around your branding efforts, check out brandishinsights.com. There'll be no more fixing of the marketing today.